In the introduction Negative Aesthetics, Botting is compiling all the tropes and aesthetics associated with the Gothic horror genre. He's setting out the foundations in which literature and film must conform to. There are specific themes, settings, details and characters which must be involved. Therefore, he is setting limits on the genre. Botton's emphasis on certain characteristics suggests that any deviation will alter the audience's response to the film and transfer the piece of literature or film into another genre entirely. However, when comparing to Dracula and A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, we see instances where they conform and oppose regular tropes of Gothic horror. Bottin pinpoints the main requirements of a Gothic horror: darkness and absence of light, displays of uncontrolled passion and violent emotions, Gothic flights of imagination which suggest supernatural possibility, mystery, magic, wonder and monstrosity, ideas and objects of displeasure, physical locations and settings which manifest disturbance and ambivalence, errors beyond reason, law and civilized authority, a young female heroine and an older male villain, the use of obscurity, the interplay of light and shadow and the partial visibility of objects. Dracula and Gothic horror tropes. In Dracula, Mina and Dracula fit the stereotype of a young female heroine and an older male villain. Dracula is described as a tall old man, clean-shaven save for a long white moustache and clad in black from head to toe, without a single speck of colour about him anywhere. This image of an elderly dark figure contrasts with the vibrancy of youth and innocence of Mina Harker, who Van Helsing describes as one of God's women, so true, so sweet, so noble. Dracula represents darkness and juxtaposed with the lightness of Mina, lightness and darkness being the common binary opposites of the genre. This makes his attempts to pray and convert Mina to vampirism even more morally wrong. Dracula was initially attracted to Lucy because of her beauty. However, Mina represents purity and Dracula is attracted to this innocence, wishing to corrupt this symbol of virginity. Dracula is fueled by his unconscious pleasure principle, and he preys on the women, as they are presented as weak and inferior. We see this unequal power balance when Dracula forces Mina to drink his blood, and how it's described as having a terrible resemblance to a child, forcing a kitten's nose into a saucer of milk. This moment emphasizes the inequality of power between the two, and the non-consensual act emphasizes how immoral Dracula is. The interactions between the two truly depict the female to be in a vulnerable position, defenseless to the older male villain. Thus, the main characters conform to the expected roles within the genre. By how Bottin perceives women in relation to the genre, it is implied women must be seen in either weak, inferior positions like a damsel in distress, or in erotically charged roles. Bottin comments that female sexuality returns as an object to a monstrous male enjoyment or a site of social control within Gothic horrors. This trope is relevant in comparison to Dracula, as women are even feared because of their sexual vampiric power, or they are governed by male authority. When Jonathan first encounters the brides of Dracula, he is transfixed by their deadly beauty, confidence, and sexuality, traits unfamiliar for women of the era. Jonathan felt in his heart a wicked burning desire that they would kiss him with those red lips. This being the second time he has referred to the ruby of their voluptuous lips, implying how affected he is. Jonathan's description here is more intense than any descriptions of Mina. He never mentions having desires to kiss his wife, or in fact be intimate in any way. He fantasizes about the bride's lips and sees them as an object of his sexual desire. He never speaks of Mina so passionately. When Lucy transforms into a vampire, the male perspective of her alters. They no longer focus on her beauty, but are terrified by her newfound sexual power. Van Helsing, who has such high opinions of Lucy before, describes her eyes as unclean and full of hellfire, causing him to be overcome with rage and wish to kill her with savage delight. The men are both affected and threatened by women coming into their power and no longer being inferior to men. Mina is purposely kept away from any violence and Dracula, yet Mina's lack of involvement because of the men is essentially their downfall. It is what you would expect from a patriarchal society of this era and of the Gothic horror genre. Mina comments on this injustice when she mentions, "It is strange to be kept in the dark, but does nothing to fight against it. The men's misjudgment of her character leaves her vulnerable to the older male villain." A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night and Gothic horror tropes. Dracula hits all the criteria for the Gothic horror trope, whereas the modern adaptation of A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night tends to stray from the basic tropes and creates a more updated version of the genre. However, it still succeeds in involving specific tropes. One of the most important elements of the genre is darkness. The absence of light adds to the eerie atmosphere and insists in creating further tension and fear. But how Anna Lily Amirpour chose the film to be black and white throughout, she's maintaining this key element and the atmosphere. The already present dark, alongside the use of obscurity, the interplay of light and shadow, and the partial visibility of objects, has a similar effect on the imagination. Although the physical locations don't necessarily conform to Gothic buildings of castles, abbeys, and ruins like in Dracula, they are still in locations which manifest disturbance and ambivalence and stimulate irrational fancies and fears. The empty, dark streets where the vampire wanders, protecting women in search for male prey, manifest these fears typical for Gothic horror. Therefore, it strays on the trope of a more modern environment. However, this is more suitable for a more recent revision of Gothic horror. A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night doesn't license male fantasies, salivating over the images of defenseless and vulnerable femininity. Instead of the objectification of women, it shows women claiming back their power and sexuality in a male-dominated society. A vampire, who we would expect to be the antagonist, or can still believe to be, is fighting against the patriarchy, and in a sense is the figure who destroys it. She's a force fighting against powerful, destructive men in the film, a female vigilante. Instead, she's using her sexuality and power to fight against instead of satisfying men. The film represents the emergence of a new genre, the female Gothic, reflecting on the particularities of women's experience, suffering, and oppression under patriarchy, rather than the sexualization of women. This newfound revision of Gothic horror, deriving from the rise of feminism and women's rights movements, dismantles the previous female stereotypes of the genres and moves the genre forward to match current affairs. Bottom's argument laid out the bare necessities of the Gothic horror genre, and although Dracula stuck to the essential elements, A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night strays. In conclusion, they both demonstrate the significance of negative aesthetics in implementing genre in film and literature.